business from the audience?
Just have a brief statement I'd like to read, take about 6 minutes. I come before you today as a citizen of Toronto to address an issue with the annual Red, White, and Blue fireworks display. Before I begin, I want to state unequivocally that I am proud of the work the volunteers do to put on a great show every year, being myself involved in other community projects, the annual turtle race, the holiday parade, and the haunted house, to name a few. I am well aware of the time and effort that goes into producing such a fine show, and I am grateful to the committee that works so hard. What I am about to address should not be viewed as a criticism, nor as a call to in any way chastise or denigrate the show as a project or as a source of city pride. Each year in early July, we as a people set aside a weekend to honor our nation and to remember the sacrifices and the shared values that set us apart in the world. Probably the most significant aspect of that celebration is our recognition that everything our founders thought and acted upon was focused on two central concepts: freedom and equality. Throughout our history, we have always challenged those who might forget these core concepts, even if well meant, even if well received by the majority. Those who challenged these lapses were usually viewed as upstarts, as troublemakers, as un-American, even as they demonstrated their patriotic impulses, and even as they proved that their motivation was only to make America better and more true to its promise of freedom and equality for all. That having been said, for nearly 2 decades, Toronto has been at the fore in presenting a fireworks display and patriotic pre-show that sets the standard for all similar shows in this valley. However, this year, in their zeal to create a memorable show focused on celebrating one particular freedom, the freedom to worship their idea of God, a freedom, incidentally, which I believe in and endorse, but in their zeal to celebrate that particular freedom, I think the show's planners may have forgotten the other guiding principle: equality. Secularism, after all, is quintessentially American. The separation of church from state leaves religious people free to practice their religion cheerfully and unreservedly, provided they don't infringe on the rights of others. And it leaves the non-religious free to live our lives free from the imposition of religion through law, education, government, employment, and so on. The principle of equality under law seeks to remove all privilege or penalties for having or lacking faith, which ensures that no belief, religious or not, receives special protection, and assures that inequalities supported in some religions, such as penalties for blasphemy or apostasy, cannot be supported outside of a religion's lawfully limited reach. In point of fact, there is no injury to religion when it is not allowed to circumvent these rules, which were designed to protect their rights as well as mine. This year's show, more than any year in the past that I can recall, seemed to have at its heart an un-American message. It seemed to be saying that this is a nation for Christians. It seemed to be saying that Christians, and Christians alone, can be honored, can be celebrated, and can be welcomed at a City of Toronto fireworks display. Worst of all, it wasn't subtle, and I don't think it was accidental. It began shortly before the pre-show ended with a pre-taped message from the pastor of Word of Life Ministries, Gary Halliburton, who, on a screen which had just shown us Bible passages and church steeples, insisted that only through faith in his God and Christ specifically can America succeed. This message was delivered in a publicly funded venue during a program paid for in part by public tax dollars. Then, as the show began, an announcer declared that the presentation was designed to reflect values of God and country, and that the show's subtitle was, "In God We Still Trust." Then began the finest 20-minute fireworks display in the valley, and for that I commend all involved. However, and unfortunately, the musical selections continued the theme of proselytizing the Christian's only philosophy that brings me here today. The first song was Diamond Rio's forgettable anthem and the source of the program's caption, "In God We Still Trust," a song which includes the lyric, "Now there are those among us who want to push him out and erase his name from everything this country's all about. From the schoolhouse to the courthouse, they're silencing his word. Now it's time for all believers to make our voices heard." Interestingly, that song, which asserts that those people who feel schools shouldn't violate the church-state separation ideals of Jefferson are un-American, was the subject of a 2009 lawsuit in Florida in which a school program was set to ironically include children singing it. Some parents sued to prevent it, and they won. This was followed by A Few Standards, songs which would normally pass muster despite having lyrics such as "God shed his grace on me," "God bless America, land that I love," and even one standard from the Civil War which doesn't even mention America, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which is all about God's wrath. Peppered into the mix was also a song by a Christian group known as the Gaither Vocal Band that included such lyrics as, "May we fight for justice till there's justice for all and become what God made us to be." In fact, in the entire show, there was only one song which didn't tie religion to patriotism, a song by John Denver. But all of this could have been ignored and sloughed off as poor taste in music, sentimentalism, and, frankly, pandering, except for one thing that happened just before the finale. Just as the Battle Hymn of the Republic was about to reach its crescendo, two ground displays were lighted up. One was a red Valentine's heart, which seemed strangely out of place. The second was a cross, the symbol of Christianity. The single most recognizable and specific emblem of the country's majority religion was erected and set ablaze during a non-sectarian program in a public secular venue. After I posted about this on Facebook, a friend of mine later said, "My Jewish husband and I looked at each other in disbelief several times during the event. The burning cross actually made my jaw drop." A devoutly religious friend agreed with my position, saying, "The fireworks was not the place for a religious service." City funds and public property are utilized to realize this event. It's promoted as a celebration of freedom, not as a tent revival. We are not a Christian nation, no matter what percentage of the population is Christian. I don't want to see the show go away, but I do fervently hope that this trend is just an oversight that will be self-remedied in the future so that other remedies do not have to be sought. Thank you for your time.